Hey guys, welcome back. And today we look into a very important function that has been in Excel for a long time now. And it's a bit complicated function, but I wanted to y'all people to have a look at it as it can be system agnostic, like it could be used in Excel, OpenOffice, Google Sheets, anywhere. Uh, and there are few formulas which may not work in other forms of spreadsheet, but lookup function does work. It is system agnostic. That's why I told you. Yeah. So the function that we're going to look up has two type to it. Uh, but let's understand what it is. So it is lookup function. Now, when I'm talking about lookup, it works exactly as HLOOKUP or VLOOKUP, but it has some additional functionalities, or you can say this is an advanced version that I wanted to have a look at. So what lookup function uh, is used for is when you need to look in a single row or column and find a value from same position in a second row or column. Yeah. So use the lookup function to search one row or one column at a time. Usually we had VLOOKUP or HLOOKUP to search for one row or columns or to search multiple rows and columns. It is a much improved version of lookup. So VLOOKUP, which we saw in an earlier video, or HLOOKUP that we saw in an earlier video, is much more advanced version, improved version as compared to lookup. But there are some flexibilities in lookup, which you will see right now, where I do not need to have a table array to search for data, but you can specify the column uh, or uh, or the row that you want to search it for. Yeah. So there are two ways in which lookup works. Is first is the vector form. Yeah. And second is the array form. So what do I mean by these two forms? So vector form, you can use this form when lookup is to search for one row or one column for a value. Now, the vector form, when you want to specify the range that contains the values that you want to match, how do you do that in vector form? Let me show you by writing the syntax. Lookup. This is the vector form. So let me write that as well. This is the vector form of lookup array. So you have the lookup, then you have the lookup value, you have the lookup value, yeah. Then you have the lookup vector. So this could be a column or a row that you want to look up for. You can say lookup vector. And then the optional is the result vector. So that it's what you want to specify in your formula as such. Yeah. So this is the vector form of lookup function. Yeah. So if the lookup function cannot find the lookup value, the function matches the largest value in the lookup function. So let me not get into the details. Let me again first show you the array form of vector. So you have this, and let me make it word wrap. Okay. Now I have it. So now I have the array form of lookup function. So that is specified again. You have the lookup function, open brackets. Then you have the lookup value. Then you have the array. Okay, so these are the two forms of lookup function available in Excel. We'll see each function how they are being used uh, in this particular data that we have on the left hand side. Yeah. So we have seen the formula. Okay. So let me repeat this formula once again for you. So it has the vector form where you have the lookup value. Okay. So you have this lookup value here. It is getting okay. So you have this lookup value here. Then you have the lookup vector. Now these are a range that contains only one row or one column, not more than that. The values in lookup vector can be text, numbers, or logical values, anything that you can have. So the values in lookup vector must be placed in an ascending order. That's very important. Yeah. Otherwise, lookup might not return the correct value. Uh, yeah. Lastly, you need to have this result vector which is available. That should be a range that contains only one row or one column. The result vector argument must be the same size as what you have for lookup vector, or it will give you an error. Okay. Now you need to understand if the lookup vector is not in an ascending order, it will give you an error. So let's try to use the vector formulas first. So vector, and then we'll use the array formula. So the first thing that we need to look at is the vector formula. So how it is being written is is equal to is equal to lookup lookup. Then I need to specify the lookup value. Let me have the lookup value as 18, which we have earlier seen. Yeah. And I need, where do I need to search this lookup value? So the lookup vector, this has to be in ascending order, which we already have it. And then we need to have the result vector. If you do not specify it, that is also okay, but we'll rather specify it. So I would want to like to have the Jan sales figures being specified. So let's see what is 18th Jan sales figure, that is 500, which you can see here. Yeah, same way if I change it to 15, yeah, so the Jan sales figure that we can see for 15 is 900. Okay. Now, suppose I do not have this data in ascending order. Let me delete something and make it 4, 5, 3. It is, suppose I change the order. It is supposed to give me an NA error if my lookup value is not in an ascending order. So my lookup array or lookup vector, let me see why it is not giving me an array. Okay, lookup vector is not in an ascending order. If I remove this, let me see if it's able to give you some value. You can see it is giving me a value even if I do not specify the result vector. Okay. So we can see there is the result vector that I've specified is not that important. It is an optional. So if I remove it, it will give me the same value which I'm looking out for. Moreover, let me see if I could just juggle the values and try to get an error out of it. If I try to change the lookup vector, it is not giving me any error as such. Can you see this? Let me make it in a descending order. Let me have this data descending. So it is giving me a 0, which is incorrect, right? You can see here, it is not giving me the right answer. What I'm looking out for is 15, yeah, in this particular data, but it is giving me the vector as 0, which is incorrect. So it is an error. So it has to be in a descending order, ascending order for you to get the data or the output on this particular lookup value. Yeah, that needs to be taken care of. Okay. Now, if the lookup value is smaller than the smallest value, so if I'm trying to look out for -1, it will give me an error because it is smaller than the smallest value. The smallest value in this vector is 1. Yeah, so I'm trying to search for -1. Even if I try to put 0, it will give me a 0 here because 0 is, yeah, it is available here. So I need to change it. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, so you can see 0 is not available, which is lower than the value that is available in this lookup vector. It is giving me an error. So you cannot have any value which is lower than your lookup vector. Yeah, that's the condition. So if lookup function is attempting to references that do not exist, lookup returns a reference error. So if I'm trying to refer a 15, yeah, in this particular, I have changed the formula is equal to lookup, need to reference this, comma, yes, so I can get 15. Let me have the result vector as well, which is my Jan sales. Now this cannot be greater than your lookup reference. If I try to make it much bigger, which is if I see the number of rows that are being selected for lookup vector as compared to the result vector, if it is higher, then it will give you incorrect uh, data type, which is it cannot be bigger than your resultant vector, or I would say I'll make it 21, I'll make it 25. It still gives me the lookup thing. Let me change it. So ideally, your lookup vector or the column that you're referencing cannot be bigger than the column that you are trying to find the result in. That's the important point that I'm trying to stress here. Yeah. So lookup acts in the same way as we had for VLOOKUP. It just checks for a value and try to give you a reference out of it. Yeah. But it works on one column or one row at a time. So if I am trying to find Let me open the Jan sales again, unhide columns. And if I'm trying to reference K3, not K3 this time, I will try to reference, let me use the same reference. We used it for column. Now we use it for rows. So I'm trying to find K3, not K3, L3, which is the sales for March in the lookup vector, which is I'll select this entire thing and one row. So I have to specify one row. So that is probably this row, and I'll say enter, and you'll find 3768 being found for sales of March. Yeah, so which is this. Okay, so I can use the lookup function for both VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP. Yeah, I do not need to have a separate formula for VLOOKUP or a HLOOKUP. That's the major positive thing about lookup as compared to VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP. But VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP gives you more flexibility in terms of searching data, where you can use wildcard characters as well, which lookup function doesn't allow you to do. Okay, so this was about vector function. Let's jump on to the array function, where we have where we saw that the lookup function needs to have a lookup value and array that you need to specify. So you will have is equal to lookup. You select the cell that you want to look up for, and then you select the array. So if I select this entire array, this entire data, and just press enter, you'll find it is giving me 450 for 15. Yeah. Now what happens in array as compared to VLOOKUP, if you remember, it searches for the last column directly. So it is giving me for 15 what is the value available in for the last column, which as per your array. So the last column was for expenses, and the value equivalent to 15 was 450 in expenses. But if I reduce this column array, so let me make it till D, you'll find it will take sales for March. So it is giving me 2529, which is equivalent to 15. So in between, if I try to get the first column or the second column, it will not allow me, as we have the flexibility in VLOOKUP. So I have to reduce the array every time if I want to look up for a value in a particular column. Now, again, like HLOOKUP, you do not have a flexibility in lookup. Now, lookup automatically switches from VLOOKUP to HLOOKUP depending on the number of columns that you have selected. Suppose my number of rows, so that is the height of the table array, is more than the width, then it will use a VLOOKUP kind of functionality. If my I'll show you that as well. So if my height is lesser, so if I say I reduce my height, I make this till EFG, and I reduce my height from 21 to 6. Okay, so I reduce my height. Yeah, so it is giving me an error, but I'll search for the value which is L3. So it automatically switches to HLOOKUP. I don't even need to specify whether it is an HLOOKUP or VLOOKUP. Yeah, this is very, very important. Just have a look at it. When using array as a lookup function, yeah, then the function automatically switches from VLOOKUP to HLOOKUP if my height of the table array is less than the width of the table array. So there are only 4 columns and 21 rows, then it will do a vertical lookup. If my width is, which is around 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 columns as compared to rows, which are 4 rows, it will use a horizontal lookup automatically. This is very, very important. Hence, I am stressing it again and again. So the lookup function switches between HLOOKUP and VLOOKUP depending on the difference is that uh, if the area covered or the area is wider than it is being taller, then it will use a HLOOKUP. Yeah, horizontal lookup. If my rows are more than the columns, then it will use a VLOOKUP. Yeah, whether it is square or taller, it will use a VLOOKUP. And the major drawback that lookup has over HLOOKUP and VLOOKUP is you can index down or across, but lookup always selects the last value in the row. So you can see here, when we selected the lookup in an array, it gave me always the value in the D column or the last column of the array. So if we select this array, the last column, that is D, is the one from where you will get the value. So for 15, I got the value of 2529 over here based on, since D was the last column. If I would have increased from D to E, it would give me a value that is 450. That is the last column right now in the array. Yeah. So these are the few things that you need to understand while using lookup or VLOOKUP or HLOOKUP functions. There are some pros and cons to it. But when and how to use the vector function and the array function, hope I was able to make the concept clear on this lookup function. Hope you like this video. Hope you understood the video. That's more important. Um, if you like the video, do like it, share it across with your colleagues who want to learn Excel. Comment if you want me to cover any of the topics in the 365 days of Excel journey. And yes, do not forget to subscribe to my channel, because that's how you're going to get all these videos notifications whenever I upload them on YouTube in future. Thank you so much.